What did another person do that accidentally turned you on? I had a friend that had brown hair but wanted to dye it to a light blonde. She accidentally messed up the process and dyed it to an almost milky white color. Somehow it looked way better. And since then chicks with white hair have been like a magnet to my eyes. Pretty late to the party. But here's mine. The left side of my back. Just under my shoulder blade. Keeps tightening up and it's incredibly painful. After about 2 months of just dealing with it, the pain became too great. So I finally swallowed my pride and went to the doctor. As I was sitting in the table being examined, the doctor ran his knuckle down my back a few times, checking different muscles and such, until he ran it down smack dab on the exact spot of my reoccurring back pain. The sudden pain it released, followed by a tidal wave of euphoria immediately afterward, causes me to let out some kind sound that was a mix between a painful grunt and a hyperesthal moan. My face immediately goes red and I apologize profusely. My doctor had a good chuckle over it and continued with the examination. I've never been into pain of any kind. But if that doctor had hit that spot one more time, I'd have been gay for a day right then and there. I was sitting with a friend who was teaching me how to tie a bunch of knots and hitches. Figure eights. Clove hitches. Bowline. Then he puts a handcuff knot on me and yanks me to my feet by my wrists. By the look on his face and how fast another friend whipped his head around to look at us, I must have made a noise. Oops. In college, one of my professors was former federal law enforcement. And he picked me from the class to demonstrate how an interrogation might go. He had me sit in a seat directly across from him and demonstrated how he would slowly move closer and closer to the person being interrogated. Up until the point where he had his knee between mine. It's kind of a thing for me now. Couple of construction guys unloaded some things from a delivery truck for us. We had a hand truck there to carry them in, ridiculously heavy boxes. They either didn't see or ignored the hand truck and each threw one up over a shoulder like it weighed nothing. Then carried them on a long walk around the building to their destination. I couldn't slide one box off the top of the other due to the weight. My co-worker and I both had immediate reactions to this and still talk about it years later. A girl I was seeing and I were at her pool. Her mom brought us popsicles. We started eating them but they began to melt. I scarfed mine. She didn't. Her popsicle broke off the stick and fell onto her chest. She quickly ran her hand up her chest to get it. Had to hop in the pool to hide my rager. He was writing a fictional story. And I was rather invested in it. Then he killed off one of the main characters and the story ended in a savagely sad turn of events. It was a great plot twist. And I knew it was coming but it still caught me off guard. I jumped up, playfully yelling and throwing soft punches at his arms. It brought a huge smile to his face. And he caught both my arms and held me there. It was 3 AM. The room was dark. His hands were wrapped tightly around both my tiny wrists. I was in my typical play fight stance. And his bright eyes were locked with mine. He smiled so big. Are you gonna calm down? I have never wanted to kiss someone so badly in my entire life. Did you? I was a drama club kid in high school. We were doing improv practice starting from the scene of one of us threatening the other. I pointed into my partner's face and she grabbed my arm and twisted it over my head, pushing me against the wall. When I first met my wife, I was a tourist new to her city. She took charge and showed me all over the city, using need to buy a new purse as an excuse. Most of the summer she took charge on what we were doing. I really appreciated it since I didn't speak the language or know the city. As a guy, I had never been treated like that with dating. Clearly it worked because I put on a ring on that fast. Dated a guy who was fantastic in bed. Before the first time we ed, I was leaning against his bed and he just stood a few feet away unstrapping his watch while he asked me what my hard limits were. Not even making eye contact. And immediately after it was off, he pounced on me. Now I just love when people take off watches. You know the thing that happens when two people are trying to pass each other in a tight space and you both go the same way a few times in a row and it gets increasingly awkward? A boy I had a crush on ended this by picking me up, turning around and putting me back down gently. I blushed. I wanted him to me. It was a confusing mess. When I was in college there was a fellow student who worked on the campus groundskeeping crew. He wasn't traditionally hot, but had a decent dad in this charming Georgia accent. Anyway, one day he was building something outside the girls' dorm and it caught my eye. Other girls noticed too. And soon there was a little crowd of girls silently gathered around the window watching him do his thing. At one point he picked up this giant piece of fencing like it weighed nothing and dropped it somewhere else. There was a collective sigh of appreciation from the room. And one girl whispered, "That was so manly." Her voice broke the spell and we all laughed. But I think we were all super turned on. Co-worker and I were really good work buddies based in Houston. We were both late 20s at the time. We were sent to another branch for a strategy meeting before they flew us and members of the San Francisco team to England. We flew from Houston to San Francisco. The next day a flight from San Fran to New England, Boston, then on to London. Basically a ton of sitting and being uncomfortable for hours. So she had some sort of arthritis and was having a flare up and was extremely uncomfortable. She said her legs and feet were driving her crazy on the first flight. Much later on the flight to England, she was on the verge of crying. I said, "What if I rub your legs?" She immediately said please. Spent the next few hours watching a movie and rubbing her legs and feet. She was propped up against the window and had her legs in my lap. Raging boner for hours. The flight back she wore shorts and brought lotion out. Asked me to go at it again. Raging boner. I smelled our waitress perspiring and my whole body reacted. IDKY, but I was insanely turned on. My co-worker scratched my back with her nails when laughing. When you sit with someone by the table and your leg accidentally touches theirs, I have to admit that turns me on. Especially when I'm wearing dress or shorts at that moment. First date. Crossing a busy street and he puts his hand on my back round my waist to kind of guide me across, pull me closer to him. It's not a new move by any means. But holy, it went from he's cute and sweet to sizzling chemistry right then and there. First day of one of my old jobs, I walk into the control room and meet one of my new bosses. She's really hot. Her perfume is exotic. She's 2 years younger than me. She's able to fire me. And I have to spend 8 hours shadowing her. That day was an endurance contest. At one point her hand accidentally brushed my pants west of the groin area over the pocket. Almost death starred my undergarments right there. When a female friend pulled up her shirt to show me her tummy and ask me something about it. Baggy t-shirt. Baggy sports pants. Tight stomach. The absolute dream. I have a stomach fetish. A friend of mine invited me and another friend out for milkshakes. And at one point she got some of hers on her fingertip. So she licked it off. I felt very flustered about this. So I turned to my other friend who was also licking milkshake off her fingertips. Anyway, it turns out I'm a lesbian. My current so and I met through work. We had a trainer-trainee relationship. I like being dominated. So already his authority turned me on. He trained me for a few weeks and was pretty serious and professional. Up until the end. At the end of our shift, I was being stupid and flirtatious and he threatened to slap me. I was like, "Do it," and tapped my cheek. Much to my delight he did it, lightly. But firmly too, and then when he saw my look of shock let out the heartiest laugh I'd ever heard from him. I was immediately wet. I could feel my face burning. I had to make up an excuse to step away. Good God. I did find out later he was as hard as a rock during that incident too. Haha. What a keeper. She was playing footsie with me in Spanish class, sitting across from each other, and eventually just set her foot down on my seat between my legs. And then she accidentally kicked my dick hard. It wasn't painful at all, but holy, I was hard for hours. I don't know why. He was working out some complex math problem in his head. I was immediately turned on. You don't need to talk dirty to me. Just do that. 2 + 2 = 4. One time in dance class in college we were doing partner stretches, and this really attractive, but very gay, classmate of mine was my partner. I was in a straddle and he was pushing, laying on my back so that it was flat against the ground. It hurt so good that I had an orgasm. Yeep. Wasn't an accident on their part, but usually I don't get turned on easily. I used to have a co-worker at a job and she was stupidly flirtatious. Had a phenomenal ass too. Used to just do cheeky things at work, but one day I leant over behind her to use the tap past her shoulder and she licked down the side of my face. 10 seconds later I feel Fonzie Jr. on the rise, so had to go to the bathroom and sit down for a few minutes to prevent the worse. She was proud of that. Miss working with her. One time my husband backed our truck into a really small space downtown in one quick sweep. I don't know if it was his impressive precise parking skills or the notion of fitting something so big into such a tight space so smoothly that turned me on. Bit weird, lame, but in high school I used to shake my leg up and down a lot for some reason. But I was sitting next to this girl I liked and her leg was basically touching my leg because small tie desks. So while my leg was shaking, it was basically shaking hers, and I guess she liked it because she gave a quiet moan and put a hand on my arm. Drank water by holding the bottle over his head and pouring it into his mouth. No idea why that turned me on so much. Basically whenever a girl plays with my hair I get strangely turned on. More so than with any man who has ever touched me. I was seeing a girl that loved dancing but had zero rhythm, and every time she'd flail those arms on the dance floor I would immediately be super attracted to her. To those girls out there that can't dance, keep doing you. I was having a tattoo on my back. The tattooist, who was probably the least attractive bloke I've ever met in my life, and I've met some corkers, put a blob of Vaseline on my back to dip into to use during tattooing. Every single time he got more Vaseline on his finger. It was like being touched on the clit. A rush of desire went through me. I could have banged him rigid there and then. Luckily I just bit my lip and let him carry on inking. I had an orgasm during my back tattoo session because of the guy's voice. Combined back touching and vibration from the ink. I let go a whimper when it actually happened and he noticed my entire body clench. He kept his hand on my back, but stopped tattooing. I sheepishly turned around after my legs stopped shaking and said I needed a break. He had the biggest grin of disbelief and asked if I needed water. Edit. Thank you for the gold. That's another unexpected first I can attach to this story. Back in college I had very long hair, guy. A group of us went to Dunkin' Donuts and my friend Kate was at the next booth, so my back was to her. She starts playing with my hair and my friend sitting with me said I had a look of utter bliss and contentment. Edit. Looks like I'm not alone. So if you like a guy with long hair, playing with it is a good way to get him interested. I walk by or hug someone that smells good. I immediately get turned on. It doesn't matter what their gender is. I just really like people that smell good. For some reason when guys say yes ma'am I get all hot and bothered. My girlfriend and I were play fighting and I found out she was really ticklish. Being really ed with me after a fight and eyeing me anyway. It was so aggressive. It actually turned me on loads. My ex-girlfriend's perfume still drives me wild. We've been broken up for 3 years. But a teaching assistant at my school was wearing the same perfume while helping me with a term paper. Insert raging boner here, her denying me when I followed her on Instagram. I saw a girl at the race in Charlotte yesterday take a sip of water and just spit it on her friend's face. Not really ashamed to say it turned me on because then they just started pouring water all over each other. Hold on to me and cry. Kinda feel bad about that one. Me, male, and one of my female friends were at a party and we started to jokingly talk each other as friends do. I jokingly respond, "How dare you?" and pretend to give an indignant slap that, in reality, was little more than a pat on her cheek. She retorts, "No. How dare you?" and gives one back. Now we're doing fake slaps back and forth, but we start getting harder with the slaps and it quickly turns into a game of chicken. I was expecting I'd have to stop from cheek pain. The actual reason I had to stop was because when the game escalated and she gave me the first full force slap across the face, I got really turned on. Like, as soon as she struck me, instant hard on. It was a learning moment for Fibonacci fanboy that night. Friend of mine was discussing a particularly good burger. He moaned over how good it was. Instant wet. Innocently beg for something. My so has this profound hearty laugh. I usually end up with an erection. Met a woman from South France while living in Japan. Massive crush to follow. Back in the States. Was in line at a deli. Some woman behind me starts talking in a southern French accent. Instant public erection. Total Pavlovian response. My friends and I got together a few days before Christmas to make some Christmas cookies. Just to de-stress after a tough year of grad school. We all met at this one girl's house. She had everything all set up. All the ingredients laid out. Everything organized and ready to go. When we finished baking, she cleaned everything and put all the cookies we made into individual Christmas buckets, things wrapped up all nicely for each of us. All I could think was, dang. This girl is going to be an amazing mother. It drove me crazy. I've never thought that about anybody else. It's been 2 years and I still think about it sometimes. I used to work at a grocery store. One day a girl around the same age as me said thank you, sir, after I helped her find something. I learned some stuff about myself that day. So one of my friends was calling me and about to get into her car. I said stay off the phone while she drives. So she said yes in a joke whiny voice like I was bossing her around. That was when I found out being called sir turns me on. I was in middle school riding home on the bus. 4 of us in that bus were playing a truth or dare game from an iPod. One girl was dared to blow into my ear. We all thought it was weird and didn't understand why that was such a big deal. And then she blew in my ear and I immediately understood. Also, coincidentally, got a crush on that very girl shortly after. Leans in. It's free real estate. The dude's voice who teaches business stats on Khan Academy. I'm learning nothing. Drive. Only my so makes me horny just from driving. Never been attracted to anyone else doing it. Including other people that I've been attracted to for other things. He's just gorgeous when he's driving. My wife gets my heart racing when she drives. Too. But it's because she's terrible. I had a male co-worker that started trying to plait my hair, long at the time, when I was on the phone. I was very distracted. It was strangely hot. She was looking for something on the floor on her hands and knees. Also, she was in running shorts and a shirt. I am the other person. She was intentionally blocking my access to the pantry, so I scooped her up in one arm to get her out of the way. Got into the pantry with my free hand. The fact that I could pick her up so easily turned out to be a huge turn on for her. Put her hand on my inner thigh accidentally while laughing. I'm straight. She's straight, but it turned me on F. Remember to sort by controversial for the real weird and possibly illegal stuff. When he takes his glasses off and gives me a serious look. Oh. This is usually before sex, but goddamn those beautiful sex eyes get me going. Now every time he takes his glasses off I just can't help but get extremely horny. Also, when we're showering he'll bend his head back a little to wash the shampoo off his head and I'll watch the soap travel down his head. Onto his neck. Down his chest. And eventually his legs. Gets me going. My sir was sitting on me while I was laying down. We're just talking. She then jokingly said my cock is bigger than yours in this tone and I just don't know man. This happens all the time when people I know decide to touch my neck collarbone area for whatever reason. It's extremely sensitive and I have to explain to people every goddamn time to please not touch me there unless you intend to me. Had to make a phone call to Atlanta for work. The woman I spoke with had the SZest voice accent I have ever heard before. Or since. She didn't even do anything. I smelt her hair conditioner and I got turned on. Life as a teenage male. You know when you accidentally catch someone's eye and people normally glance away embarrassed. Well, she held the gaze and made a nice big smile. Not exactly turned on by it, but it was very nice to be on the receiving end of and extremely memorable. In school. This guy in my class put his foot on the back of my desk and jiggles it hard for quite a while. I was so turned on from the vibrations and close to coming. But then he stopped. Sat next to me on a bus. It was winter. She was curvy. The fat of her buttock touched mine. It was cold. I was hard. That comment sounded like poetry. Like Edgar Allan Poe or something. Edit. I can't help but get turned on when my girlfriend cries. I don't understand it. Guessing it's something about her vulnerability. But obviously isn't the best time to be aroused. Literally just took off his sunglasses and smiled at me. Was there an overbearingly loud in the background? Senior year I had a trig teacher who was 24 and gorgeous. We got on quite well as student and teacher. One day, I was in a particularly tight mood and tramping down the hallway. Someone called my name in a rather childish fashion. So I shot a glance that conveyed my mood. Then I heard my name in her teacher voice. I whipped around to face her and she growled at me while making a claw gesture with her hand. Before telling me to smile. That growl. Oh man. I'll be in my bunk. At work, a female coworker. Was pretty attractive. Was having some simple trouble and she, like in a whiny innocent helpless voice, asked for help. Glenn Headless. He helped me. And it was just, I dunno. So hot. She knew what she was doing. When a girl is wearing my clothing. Something about the size of my hoodie making it look like you're naked underneath. Or my hat on your head. Just drives me wild. So and I met at work. One really stormy day. He was outside wrangling carts and I could see him through the windows from my kiosk. He was working hard. Heavy yellow raincoat whipping around. Wild beard dripping wet. I could have taken him right then and there. Then the thought hit me. Did I secretly have a thing for the dude on the fish sticks box? I had a friend I worked with that I'd had. And gotten over. A little crush on. Then one day. When it was just the two of us up front in the store. She started going on about some very detailed math about capture rates in Pokemon. Hardcore stats about how easy or hard it was to capture a given Pokemon in a particular game. Right off the top of the dome. I had never been more attracted to her in our 5-ish years of knowing each other than I was in that moment. Seriously had to go find work to do in the back room to calm down a little. I haven't even played a real Pokemon game in a solid 8 years. I think. Didn't get on the Pokemon Go train. Just a good looking nerdy girl nerding out on something she's clearly super into was like Poison Ivy's Love Dust to me.